So when I think back to what inspired me to take my first dance class, I always laugh because it was actually an advertisement. So, you know, the power of advertisement, it actually does work. We used to have a newspaper here called Creative Loafing, and I saw this picture of this woman, and she was so beautiful. And it was just her eyes, and it was this incredible like eye makeup with like really dark kohl, and it just said Bellydance. And I don't remember it saying anything else, but I know it said Bellydance, and like her eyes, and I saw that and I just thought, oh, that looks really cool. And at the time, I had a boyfriend who was a musician, and so he was like super busy, and I never really saw him very much, and I was kind of bored and just looking for something to do, and I saw that and I thought, I would really like to meet that woman. And turns out it was totally a stock photo. It was not the teacher, but she was a really, really neat lady, and that picture of that really magical looking person really inspired me, and I decided to check it out. Okay, so my first costume, I'm having to think about this. I want to say one of my first costumes, I had a teacher just kind of throw me in one of her old ones, so I don't even remember it, but the one that I remember as being kind of like my first costume was actually a tribal one that I made myself. I was dancing with a band called Legion Sex Drive, and I didn't have the money to do a cabaret, bedla, or anything, and so I bought myself a bra and covered it with some fabric, and excited, and I went to Joann's, and I kind of didn't have a lot of money, so I bought like some trim, and I think I ordered off of eBay some coins, and I made this little bra and belt set, and I made myself some hair and pants and a little panel skirt, and that was my first costume was entirely handmade. Oh, and I made myself a choli. I went to Goodwill and found a shirt and actually sewed it into modified it and made it into a choli. Yeah. So I actually started dancing when I was about 4 years old. I did ballet and jazz and tap until I was about 12. And then I took a break from dance for a while. It popped up a little bit in my life here and there. When I was in high school, I was in a couple dances for drama club. When I was in college, I was in a couple dances. And when I really came back to it, that ballet dance story that I just shared with you, I started off doing what I think would probably be considered American Cabaret. And then I fell in love with it, and I sought out different teachers. So I did a lot of Egyptian, a lot of Turkish, and you know, sometimes you just find a style and it really calls to your heart. And so I fell in love with tribal, but there weren't any teachers around. So I really went into Turkish very, very deeply, and that was my love. I worked at a bunch of Turkish restaurants. I studied it really hardcore, and it was a blend. It was kind of a Turkish fusion with American. And then I did some ATS and some tribal fusion. I've really done a lot of deep diving. And then I think I had my first Gypsy Caravan class. Oh my gosh, my second or third year of belly dancing, I got to go to a workshop in Orlando with Paulette, and to this day I remember just her smiling, her smile that she has, and some of the things she said in the workshop. And then a number of years later, I got to do intensive with her, and I fell in love with it and came home to tribal. I feel like something from nature, so like some nice flowers, or maybe some bones, maybe just something natural. So flowers, something green, flowers and leaves, definitely some sort of cool crystal that absolutely would get my attention. French fries, I love French fries. I'm fully into that. I really dig French fries. Probably a cat would be good, and some kind of music. Pretty much any music would probably get me to come over and say hello, but anything that has a really good drum beat, for sure. I used to say that I get bored kind of easily, so I'm always doing lots to keep myself from being too bored, but probably I'm just keeping busy so that I can not pay attention to real life. But I really like to travel. That is one of my absolute favorite things to do. I'm in a couple different volunteer organizations. My husband and I collect vintage and antique kimono, and we do a lot of displays and talks and classes about Japanese culture and kimono. And then I also build screen accurate costumes for Star Wars and some other different costuming communities, and we do a lot of volunteer work with that. So we'll put our costumes on and go to hospitals and other places where it's just kind of nice to be in costume to sort of surprise people or give them a good day. And then I do a lot of artwork. So as a visual artist and a working artist, I do a lot of different types of artwork. Right now I do commissions of animals for different people, and I'm turning that into an oracle card deck. I did a gothic wedding, which I mean, I don't really think that's strange, but at the time, it was before theme weddings were really a thing, so it was the first gothic wedding I'd ever been to, and they asked me to do, you know, like gothic fusion, so I got to come out with like all sorts of, like and they wanted, you know, it was really funny because the bride was like, just kept saying, I want you in black, and I want you in something like really creepy, so I got to do just crazy awesome makeup, and I had the hair falls and everything, the dreads, and I put like all sorts of stuff in them, and I remember I was in like all black, but I had this metal bra, and I had run the costume by the bride beforehand, and she's like, yes, I love that, that's awesome. And we used to have 2 snakes that I danced with, and she, you know, it was really funny because she's like, you have to bring the snakes, like we have to have them. So after I danced at her wedding with my snakes, we you know, the whole wedding party was posing with the snakes and everything. So that was a lot of fun. That was pretty cool. So when I say I'm a belly dancer now, I think they believe it a lot more readily than they used to. When I used to work for the county and my hair was a normal color, and I would be in my county uniform, which was like a Bimini Bay fishing outdoor shirt and men's pants from the army that were usually 2 sizes too big for me. People go, what, you really? And now I think because I have embraced it a little more, and I don't try to hide it as much, because for a long time, because I had a government job, it was a little hard for me to really be completely out there. But now it's like my hair is bright red, and I wear all this cool jewelry, and I really allow myself to move and really embody my spirit. It's a lot easier for people to see, I think. Okay, top 3 tips. Number 1 is it's a hair garden, not a hat. Okay, so when you're making your hair garden, make sure, look, I happen to have a piece right here, right? So when you put it on your hair, make sure that you're not putting it in a place that makes it look like you're wearing a jaunty hat, right? You can do it, but like definitely fill it in. I am a big fan of like putting it in places on your head where it's beautiful, like you turn around and you see it. If you are putting it like up or whatever, maybe more towards the back so that it doesn't look like, you know, you set it on your head. I also like small pieces. Big pieces are really great. I have a friend who makes these really beautiful big pieces, and they're awesome because you could just kind of pop it in the back of your head and then fill in around it. But I always recommend having some smaller pieces. To me, this is like a medium-sized piece, but that way you can put them in and kind of use them to fill in. And this is kind of a different tip, but I recommend finding a lot of different local vendors and people in the dance community and patronizing them and buying from them, like really becoming a collector of different pieces from lots of different dancers, because it's really neat when you can say like, these right here came from my sister in Portland, and this band came from my sister in New Zealand, and I'm trying to think what else I have in my hair. Yep, my little flowers also came from one of my sisters up in Portland. So it's kind of neat because you can carry their good energy and love with you. It's really helped it. I think before I started belly dancing, I was very much a tomboy, which is totally cool. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. That's awesome. But it's really helped me connect to my feminine side and really become comfortable with a lot of aspects of my femininity that I had a lot of trouble with. I had some, I had experienced some abuse and actually was raped. And that really was hard for me to deal with a lot of stuff. And I think belly dance really helped me heal from a lot of that. So it's a really interesting question to ask whether or not belly dance is in decline. I've been dancing since I think 2003 or 4 or something like that. And I've seen cycles. When I first came in, tribal was it was a huge deal. And then all of a sudden tribal fusion became big. And then it kind of died off a little bit. And then people started saying, oh, tribal is dying. But then tribal fusion got big again. And people were saying, oh no, the oriental style is dying. And I think it's kind of like anything else. I think people get really excited kind of about the new thing and may get really into that. And then maybe then they'll go over here and they'll go over here. But I think that, I don't think belly dance is in decline. I think belly belly dance will always call to people who want to learn how to dance, want to move their body, and maybe are looking at a soulful connection to themselves through dance. So I think that that's always going to be there, and I think it's really important to remember that belly dance culturally is a deep part of many different cultures. Maybe not the belly dance that we know in the restaurants, but Middle Eastern dance has been around for so many years, and it's woven into the fabric of the culture. So for me as an American to say, oh, well, it's in decline, I don't think it ever will be, because I think it is very much part of the culture. I think it's more along the lines of, you know, how, like, here in America, are we going to see 1 million people coming to our classes? Probably not right now, because it's not the in vogue thing. But I think that the next movie that has a belly dancer in it, then, you know, yeah, we probably will find that it's like anything else, and it becomes popular again. Styles, I mean, you used to see them kind of come and go, but now, because so many people have access to the internet, we actually have a lot more opportunity to keep people invested in our styles. So I think that what we used to see, where something would sort of fade away and we might not see it again, I think that because we are able to share so much now with technology, locally, globally, that we are able to see, like, kind of keep that thriving a little bit more so. So I started off as a Oriental style dancer, cabaret, whatever word you want to use to call it, and I was very much a soloist. Sometimes I would dance with other dancers, we would dance a choreography, but it was always kind of like I was over here, they were over here, maybe there was another person over here, and we were all kind of doing our own thing. Like, there might have been 3 of us, but there were 3 dancers on the stage, and we might have been connecting with each other, we might not. Certainly not every Oriental or cabaret style dancers dance like that. But in tribal, there's this really magic moment that happens, and it can be during a choreography or during improv, but I find it most often happens during improv, where it's just like everything clicks together. And it's almost like the group is moving and breathing and dancing as one. Doesn't mean that people won't make mistakes, like sometimes it happens, but there's like this just beautiful settling in, and it just sort of feels like everything clicks together. I've heard other people describe it as like when they meditate, the really like calm, like clarity that they get, that happens. That doesn't normally happen for me because I get really bad stage fright, even when I'm not performing. Like sometimes I get really nervous, but that's kind of the beauty of it. You may be nervous, but then all of a sudden you realize you're dancing with your sisters and brothers, and everyone is in it together, and the circle, or whatever formation you're in really, but the circle holds everyone, the tribe holds everyone, and our strengths are our strengths, but our strengths are shared and multiplied, our weaknesses are, we compensate for each other, and we're all holding that space for each other together. And it's just this really neat moment, especially I think during improv, where you realize if you're following, you sort of realize you've got this like heart-to-heart connection where everybody is moving together and flowing together. And if you're leading, you realize that the folks are there with you. You're not dancing by yourself. It's not like you're out there and all the eyes are on you. You realize you've got all these people at your back, and they're sharing that space with you. So I feel like, I want to say it was Mark Twain, I may get this totally wrong, but I feel like Mark Twain at some point said that if you want to find yourself, you should travel. And I think that has been probably the best thing that I've ever done for myself in my life, was just getting out and exploring. It really taught me that I could get through a lot of situations, some of which were really scary, some of which were really funny. In India, our luggage was, there was a whole mix-up. It was really crazy. Our luggage was put onto one cart, we were put on another, and it was gone. We lost all of our money, we lost all of my husband's clothes, we lost, pretty much the only thing I didn't lose was my belly dance costume, because it was packed in another suitcase, and I had like that in there, my makeup was gone, but I had my costume, I had some underwear, and a couple pairs of pants, and so my husband had to wear my pants for a lot of the rest of that trip. But that happened, we found out, and we were standing on the side of this road outside of Varanasi, India, and I was just crying. I was a mess. I was like, I can't believe this. We lost all of our money, because it was all in the one suitcase, which we never do. We always move it around. But I had been sick. He had been sick. There was this big rush, and we made a mistake. And as he was sitting there holding me crying, this van pulls up, and there was a dead body on top of it, because Varanasi is the city where a lot of the bodies are brought for religious purposes. And these people get out of the van, they picked up the body, and they literally laid it down at our feet. And it was just one of those moments of like, okay, well, perhaps losing your luggage is not the worst possible thing that could have happened to you. And I tell this story because it's just sort of this illustration of what happens when you travel. Like, you never know what's going to happen. And it's such an incredible experience to have these things happen. Now, you know, hopefully I will not have another experience like that one, because it was really, really crazy, but also very humbling and very, very grounding, and very much one of those moments where you really take a moment to stop and take stock in you know, what's important in life. And I think traveling really teaches you that. It really teaches you to survive, and it really teaches you you know, what's important and what you need, and the things you see and the things you experience. I mean, you never know what's going to happen, and that's really a spectacular part of it. So I've traveled all over the world. I've been to every continent right now except for Antarctica, which has been just amazing. And I have a lot of my travel has been woven into with dance. I've led Bellydance retreats in Morocco. I have traveled to Japan specifically to perform in Japan. I've performed in New York, Portland, Rhode Island. I'm headed to Hawaii to perform there in October. And I think that my travels influenced my dance because it's really given me the opportunity to see how belly dance, both how it exists in culture. So for instance, in Morocco, it was really spectacular to get to experience a lot of the dance that was there. Same thing in India. And of course, you know, India isn't, you know, like our Egyptian cabaret ballet dance or our American ballet dance, but so much of that dance fed into it. That was really, really spectacular. And then in some of the places I've been, like in Australia, I got to go to class with one of my sisters from GC. And in Japan, I got to perform with a whole community of Japanese belly dancers there, and just seeing how different dancers approach the dance and how they honor it and revere it and how they themselves learn it is very inspiring and definitely teaches me a lot. So people can find me online a couple different places. My website is www.shimmyboom.com. I also have a Facebook page together with my husband. It's Cypress Pillar Healing Arts. So I think on Facebook it's facebook.com/CypressPillar. And on that page I do put a lot of videos and posts about dance. And then he and I share a website together as well that's cypresspillar.com.